best place for below average Star Wars.
Hello there, and welcome to the Star Wars Show, the best place for below average Star Wars. I am the Jolly Jedi Pete, and we are back with another of our special Knowing Me, Knowing You, aha, specials. The Knowing Me, Knowing You specials were developed when the COVID outbreak first hit, and we thought there possibly might be no Star Wars news going on, and it was a way of interacting with other Star Wars fans and having a Star Wars conversation. How it'll work is myself and my guest will each ask either 5 Star Wars related questions in order to create a nice juicy Star Wars conversation. I'm joined today's special guest is Steve Galloway, the literature editor for Jedi News, as well as lots of other things. Steve, how are you doing?
Hello there. I'm well, thanks, Pete. Thanks for inviting me on. I'm looking forward to this and having a tete-a-tete over knowing me, knowing you, and I'm going to do the Alan Partridge bit. Aha.
Aha, indeed. Obviously, Steve, you've been on before. You know, we did a fantastic deep dive into Shadows of the Empire and the anniversary.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
Which was awesome, and it's been too long, so I'm glad that you're finally back on for some Knowing Me, Knowing You. So we'll get things started off. I'll let you ask the first question, as you are the very special guest.
Right. Well, as I'm Jedi News' literature editor, I can't not ask you a question about the myriad of obviously publications that we have on the shelves over the years. So you might have had this one before, but which is your favourite publication you have ever read and why?
Ooh, that's a really good one. So I think my favourite is probably Lost Stars by Claudia Gray. The reason why is because obviously with the Lucasfilm acquisition by Disney, and the announcement of sort of everything going forward being canon, in the build up to The Force Awakens, I think the Aftermath trilogy and Aftermath Book 1 was sort of the big thing, and I grabbed that, and I love the Aftermath trilogy, but I did struggle a bit with that first book when I first picked it up, and then I ended up coming across Lost Stars sort of by accident, which sort of tells the events of the original trilogy through the eyes of these two characters, one on the Empire side, one on the side of the Rebellion, but also sort of delves into the timeline and takes you up to sort of The Force Awakens and the Battle of Jakku and stuff like that. So I really, really enjoyed that book, although it's a YA book. I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved, the character developments and how great sort of the two main characters are in Lost Stars. And like I said, it was a book I wasn't really aware of, and then when I got hold of it, I sort of couldn't put it down. And it came out of the blue because, as I said, my focus at the time was all about this Aftermath book that had come out. And then I actually enjoyed Lost Stars more. But I must give an honourable mention to Light of the Jedi, the first book in the High Republic series. That was really, really captivating. And I said I really, really, really loved that one too. Out of curiosity, what's your favourite, Steve?
Out of the post-Disney era, I would say Lost Stars. Close on would also be Light of the Jedi. 2 absolutely amazing books, and it's brilliant to see Charles Soule and Claudia Gray now being part of the High Republic. I've got to admit, going back a few, obviously Shadows of the Empire we've just spoke about, but I think going back, I've actually got to go for a series. I can't actually pick one novel, but it would be the new Jedi Order series that was done regarding the Yuuzhan Vong and stuff like that. So it's unfortunately, sadly, where, spoiler alert, we lose Chewie, because obviously he was the first major character to be killed off in the Legends books, and that for me was captivating. I've done some deep dives into that. It was so many books and what have you over such a long period of time. It was stunning. It was a brilliant, and to be fair, if you want to read some different types of Star Wars, for me it's one of the most highly recommended series of Star Wars books anybody could ever read. It is just phenomenal writing.
I remember picking I didn't read them all, but I read odd ones here and there in my teenage years. And I remember still so vividly, I don't know which book it was, but I remember a passage where it's sort of just, I think Princess Leia has Chewie's chair removed from the Falcon cockpit and replaced, and like the sort of the how powerful a moment that could be, like rings a bell in my head, unless I just made that up, but I remember that for some
Yeah,
reason.
one of the amazing parts of that series as well is the turmoil and hurt that Han goes through, because Han virtually has a breakdown where he just goes rogue around the galaxy, pretty much like what he's done in a way when you get to the Force Awakens, where him and Leia have separated. He actually goes through that type of period, but it's through losing and grieving for his best friend. And Solo sort of touches on that bond, and then the Force Awakens also touches on that separation between him and Leia. Obviously for different reasons this time round, but that is a very, very poignant passage in those. For me, that series, yeah, as I say, is fantastic.
I think honourable mention for me, I do read a lot of comics, and I absolutely love the Poe Dameron comic series, which sort of told you why Poe sort of went after Lord Antega to find the map of Skywalker, and it sort of blends into the sequel trilogy really well. So I really enjoy the Poe Dameron comic. And then I think as a young reader, I remember being going to school, and it was like school book club day where you could take some money and buy a book at the book fair. I think it was like the Scholastic Book Fair. And I remember getting it. It was like the Star Wars Diary series. So it was like you got like Anakin Skywalker's diary and Padme Amidala's diary, and it was sort of it told the story of the Phantom Menace sort of through diary entries from those two characters. I remember reading those as like a 10-year-old and really enjoying them.
Yeah, I won't tell you how old I was when they came out. It wasn't 10, probably I think double and a half. But yeah, I know which set you mean. Very good for comics for me. I think it's the Darth Vader series by Charles Soule. You've gone for Poe Dameron by Charles Soule. Two iconic series in the modern Marvel era. For me, it's the Vader series, just slowly backed up at the moment by the Bounty Hunter series by Ethan Sachs. For me, that is knocking on the door of how good the Darth Vader 25-part run was by Charles Soule.
And just out of curiosity, obviously, we've talked about like some series of comics there, but I think best sort of one volume run, I suppose, for me, I think would be the Rise of Kylo Ren. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, the miniseries, yeah, very good. Kat will be jumping off her chair at this point listening to that, because I know Kat absolutely adores Kylo. For me, I'm not sure about a miniseries. There's been a few good ones. I think the Galactic Star Cruiser one, again by Ethan Sachs, has been a very good one. But I think my favourite of a sort of miniseries would be the Age of Rebellion, which was a 6 or 8 part. I can't remember which it was, where there were different stories about different characters each time, and basically they covered like Tarkin and a few others, and it was characters from that era, all with like short stories about them, sort of one issue each. And they obviously did the same for the Resistance era, and also for the Republic era as well. But the Rebellion one for me was the mini series.
So I've got most of those. I haven't read them yet. They're in storage at the minute while my house is getting renovated. But as soon as the house is up and running, I've got my Star Wars office set up. I'll be making sure I read those ones. So I'll let you know what I think.
Crack them open, mate. Well worth a read.
My first question for you, Steve, is if you could have been on set for any Star Wars scene that was filming, which would you choose and why? So any Star Wars moment that's been filmed, either in movies or television, which would you have liked to have been on set to watch them film, and why?
I'm a bit controversial, I think, on this one, because my first thought was, something on the Death Star from the original A New Hope. But I'm actually going to say Obi-Wan Kenobi, the fight scene between Vader and Kenobi.
Very, very powerful stuff. I think very emotional stuff as well.
Yeah, very emotional. It got emotional for me watching, because everybody knows I'm a huge Obi-Wan fan. I'm a huge Ewan McGregor fan as well. We'll never make any quiet about that. And I'm a huge Alec Guinness fan as well. So it's not just down to Ewan McGregor's portrayal of Obi-Wan that I've become a fan. But I just think that was such a powerful storyline, and the twists in it and what have you, and sort of like, my friend truly is dead, and it's just so powerful and emotive, and yeah, that would be amazing, because even Ewan McGregor said this last couple of weeks how it affected him recording that scene, and I can understand why, because obviously he's really felt that part since recording back in the late '90s, the early 2000s, and obviously the friendship he's got with Hayden personally. But the way he portrays the Obi-Wan character in those scenes is mind blowing.
Definitely. I think if I was going to pick one from Kenobi, I would choose the Obi-Wan versus Anakin training scene on Coruscant, sort of set around Episode 2 timeline. Just to see those Ewan and Hayden play sort of the younger selves from that Attack of the Clones timeline, and seeing that lesson and seeing them tap back into that sort of fun banter, sort of father-son, teacher-student relationship. I think it would be really cool to see them tap back into that, as they did do perfectly in that scene. I think if I was choosing an overall scene, though, from any of Star Wars, I think for me it would probably be Return of the Jedi. I think one of my favourite scenes is when Luke turns that lightsaber off and throws it away. Like the way he looks at Vader's hand sliced off, looks at his own, the way he squelches his hand, and you can sort of see that, yeah, like the Emperor is trying to turn him into his father, and that's when he sort of takes a step back from it all and chooses love, essentially. So I think I would love to see that scene on set.
Yeah, Mark Hamill was lambasted over the years for his for wooden acting, and I never see that, because I think those scenes, especially in Jedi, his acting is absolutely first class. I think personally, and yeah, so people at the time sort of pigeonholed him or whatever. He was a relatively poor actor, and I actually give him a lot more credit for actually his portrayal of Luke Skywalker. I know he's done some amazing stuff with voice work. I sat at Celebration a few years ago and heard him recite one of the Joker's eulogies, not eulogies, or sort of like a speech that the Joker gives in one of the really famous Batman cartoons. I can't remember which one it is off the top of my head now. And to hear him do that was absolutely stunning. But for me, his portrayal in those scenes at the end of Jedi are first class. They really are.
Definitely, it certainly made me buy into it and feel it as a child, and certainly watching now as an adult, I still have that same feeling. It takes us right back to that raw emotion and sort of tragedy, but also jubilation if I'm making the right choice. It takes you right back to that. So fantastic job by Mark.
Awesome.
Steve, you can shoot with your next question.
Okay then, if you could choose one actor who was never featured in any format of a Star Wars production so far, who would that be, and who would they portray?
So I can tell you straight away, it would be Viggo Mortensen. Obviously, who portrayed Aragorn in Lord of the Rings, amongst a lot of Cronenberg movies as well. Fantastic, and Eastern Promises and things like that. For who he could portray, he's so good. He could portray anyone. I think for me, Viggo he's one of my favourite actors from when I was a teenager, again up until now. I think the last time I watched him in was what was it called? It was the one where his sort of wife had died and he was with his family living off the grid. Captain something, I can't remember what it's called, but he's great in that. But I think Viggo could play, we could play a swashbuckling Jedi, certainly from the High Republic era, definitely. You can also tidy him up, get rid of his scraggy hair, scraggy beard. You can make him like absolutely sort of an old Imperial governor or ISB agent or ISB officer. I think you could put an eye patch on him and he could be a bounty hunter. You could play them all. I think for me, because I'm so tapped into the High Republic and loving it, so for me, definitely Viggo Mortensen. Like I said, he can play anybody, but I would love to see him be like a Jedi from the High Republic era, as sort of a one on the outskirts of the galaxy who sort of are they called Seekers? There's a certain name, isn't there?
Yeah.
So yeah, the Seekers who are going in the Outer Rim and exploring things sort of away from the Republic. I think it would be great as one of those.
I think one character. I'm just looking up at the minute. I'm just trying to get a reference picture of him. So just bear with me. And I'm thinking of for some reason, I just don't know why. Now, he wouldn't be looking like he normally looks. Loden Greatstorm from the High Republic.
Yeah, definitely Loden vibes.
Although he's not going to be seen as he is, but I think that would be a very, very good fit for him. So I was just finding a reference picture, so I knew I was getting the right Jedi I was thinking of.
No, definitely agree with you.
So right, so it's my turn now, isn't it, on this one?
Yes, indeed.
Right, okay. I've got mine. Mine is actually influenced by this TV series I've just finished watching. So I'm not sure if you've seen it yet, but Slow Horses. It's on Apple TV Plus, and it stars Gary Oldman. And Gary Oldman is the man who I would put forward for it. I saw him in this. I've been a fan of his for a long, long time. He's an absolutely fantastic actor. But what I've seen of him in this Slow Horses is a side of him that he was just absolutely sensational. So politically incorrect, it's unbelievable, because he's an agent from a different time. But I would love to see him as a surly, no-nonsense Imperial officer, or a wayward Jedi. So there's two absolute polar opposites. So a Jedi similar sort of to Dooku, who may have left the Jedi Order, is now surly but not turned to the dark side. Sort of like a cross between like a bit of a con man, sort of like Harger Estrie type thing, where he's taking advantage of people and those types of things. But he's actually a Jedi who's doing it wrongfully. So I think that for me is heavily influenced by his appearance in Slow Horses. But I think he would be a perfect fit for the Star Wars galaxy.
Yeah, I haven't seen that show, but obviously Gary Oldman is absolutely fantastic. In everything I've seen him in, and all that from Fifth Element all the way through to he's portrayed as Commissioner Gordon in the Dark Knight series to Sirius Black, obviously in the Harry Potter movies. It's a really, really good choice there. And again, someone who could portray a lot of different type of characters because he's that good. Really, really good choices. My next question for you is sort of a two-parter. So, what is the favourite thing in your Star Wars collection? And then also, what is one thing that is your holy grail item that you really want to own one day? So it's sort of something that you don't own but you really want. And then also, what's the current favourite in your collection?
I've been really lucky in recent years. I have been in a position where I've been able to get most of my Grail figures. I had one turn up just before Christmas, which was my Clone Wars sideshow Obi-Wan. The other one was the Mythos Obi-Wan sideshow figures. So I managed to pick those up. So those were two of my big Grail figures. And the other one was Trapper Wolf in the Black Series figures. And I managed to pick one of those up at Christmas really cheap. So I've done quite well on that. I think my Grail figure would actually be an original mint on card Palatoy 12-back Luke Skywalker. That for me was the first figure that I ever bought or I was ever given, back for sort of 99p back in 1978, and I think that would be my Grail. That would be the one thing that I would love to own again. My bank balance is nowhere near capable of affording that. Well, I could probably afford it, but my wife wouldn't let me, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
it's the price of a small car, basically. So that would be the one thing that I would love to own. As in prized possession, I've got so many things that I've been lucky to have, but I had a very lovely gift sent me from Star Wars Insider many years ago. I had a complaint lodged because one of the magazines was badly printed. There was all like shimmer on the print, and it was really bad for so many pages, and I couldn't read the articles. So I contacted Titan and mentioned that there was a problem. And I'd been to other places and still couldn't get a clear copy of the magazine. And they actually found that every single magazine that was published in the UK had suffered from this problem. And I was the only person that complained. So they said they were going to send me a little gift in the in the post. So I got home that night, or a few nights later, to find a courier card being put through my door, and I had to travel about 9 miles to get to the depot where I had to collect it from. And I was expecting like a little package with some magazines in, and I got a box given to me that was probably about 2 foot high and probably about 1.5 foot wide by another foot deep. And when I opened it on the car park, it was the Polystone, like 2 foot edition of Count Dooku and Asajj Ventress embracing each other.
Oh, fantastic!
And for me, that it's a limited edition piece by Gentle Giants, and they sent that to me as an apology and thank you for letting them know about this dodgy run of magazines. And I think even though it was an acquired item, I was gifted it, it still has pride of place in my collection. It's a beautiful item, and I think that is probably one of my most special items that I have in my collection.
That's awesome, because it's quite an awesome story as well as an awesome piece. That's
yeah. It's the story about it that gives me that connection to it. It's something that I was given for, just for basically raising my head above the parapet, and that's before I was doing anything for Jedi news or anything like that. And I rung one of the guys I used to work with back at the place I was working at the time. He's a huge Star Wars fan, and I'm on the phone there in the car park ringing him, going, "You can't believe what they've sent me." It was the time before we got camera phones and stuff like that as a standard. So I had to take some photos and took him into him on the work on the Monday. He just sat there. He was absolutely agog that what I'd got on my shelf. It was just absolutely amazing. So yeah, nice story to go with it as well.
Definitely, I think something that I would really love is maybe one day it'll be impossible. Who knows? Again, I imagine it's quite expensive, but I want an original Revenge of the Jedi poster. So obviously, before the title change, obviously some merchandise went out with the Revenge of the Jedi sort of font on, and you can buy reprints now, like no problem at all. But I really want an original, like sent out too early, Revenge of the Jedi poster. So maybe one day, because I bet that's again probably the price of a small car as well,
or at least a kidney.
Yeah, but I can dream.
Yeah, can't we all? So, what's your favourite part in your collection then?
I don't know. It's hard. I think. Usually when I do these podcasts, I've got the collection around us, but it's all in storage at the moment. But I think one thing I tend to always look back to is that like my 90s X-Wing, kind of X-Wing, like is still my collection to this day. And it's something I always look at whenever I go in that room. So it's not the rarest and part of my collection, and not the most expensive part of my collection, but it's the bit I probably look at the most, to be honest. So maybe that, I think.
Yeah, I've got one of those up in my loft. I collected all the stuff from the 90s, so I've got a huge collection of that up in the loft. It was my second go at Star Wars collecting, because I won't tell you how little I sold my original Star Wars stuff for many moons ago. But yeah, it wasn't enough. So I lost all mine at a young age, probably I was about 15. And then when obviously they re-released The Power of the Force 2, which was all that type of collection, I just want to buy Darth Vader on top of my monitor for my computer. And then by the time 2 weeks was over, I'd got the full first wave, and that was it. It became a very expensive hobby overnight.
As it always does.
Oh yes.
I mean, in the lockdown, I started collecting sort of the vintage Star Wars figures, like the original ones. Again, they're all in storage at the moment, but I've already got about maybe 15 of them. And, they're not all in awesome condition, but I just want to get one of each one, I think. And then from there, maybe then sort of upgrade them to one of each one in better condition, one of each one with the correct accessories and that type of stuff. But yeah, so I started collecting those in the lockdown, still sort of doing it here and there. So yeah, always something to collect, as they say.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's too much to collect at times.
What is your next question for me, Steve?
Okay then, music. It's a huge part of the Star Wars experience. So do you have a particular track that you would listen to to either relax or to inspire you while you're doing something for Star Wars?
I think something that comes to mind straight away more recently would be, especially with the way The Force Awakens ends with the sort of the cliffhanger ending in Luke Skywalker and sort of not knowing. I think that last track, the Jedi Steps in finale, I used to listen to that after the movie came out, sort of on the way home from work to work, sort of on my iPhone, just because it would fill us with just that the Jedi Steps part of the song is very much like it took us right back to that part of the movie of like what's going to happen next. I don't know, and it allowed you to sort of wander. Your mind would wander into what is going to happen, and then obviously it goes into the crescendo and the end credits and the Star Wars theme, and then you get all the best parts of the movie's music after that. So that was one I listened to a lot, especially after that movie. I think for just overall soundtracks, I think The Last Jedi is my favorite Star Wars soundtrack of all time. I just think overall, I think it's John Williams' best work from sort of opening credits to finale. I think The Last Jedi brings a lot of sort of new themes, blends it in perfectly with some of the nostalgic Star Wars themes in a very good way, very natural way. And yeah, I just think you can listen to that album and it sort of tells the whole story of the movie. So yeah, I think The Last Jedi is my favourite complete soundtrack. I think my favourite track that I've listened to the most, I said recently in the last 5-10 years, is probably the Jedi Steps and finale from The Force Awakens. But I mean, again, not saying I'm out to pick three, but I remember sort of when Phantom Menace came out and Duel of the Fates and even made the chart in the UK, I think, and having that album and me and my friend Johnny sort of playing the album while we were sort of playing with the figures in his house. Those sort of memories are associated with that Duel of the Fates track. So yeah, that's sort of, I'm not going to pick one of them, but they're the ones that I sort of really love the most. But I listen to them all, to be honest. I even listen to sort of the game soundtracks. I think Jedi Fallen Order had a fantastic soundtrack. So yeah, but they're my favourites, I would say. How about you?
I'm going to put slightly left field compared to a lot of people. I'm going to go with the soundtrack of by Joel McNeely for Shadows of the Empire. Everything but a movie. Obviously, we had everything there because obviously there was all the toys, everything, comics, the lot, books, toys. Oh, you name it, we had it, except for a film. And for me, the music there does hark to Williams, but it's just a bit different. And for me, Shizor's theme, or Prince Shizor, as he's known, his theme is absolutely stunning. And I think for me, that's my favourite soundtrack out of all the Star Wars movies. All the Star Wars music. It's got to be, if I'm going to say anything, I'm going to go cliched. It's the Imperial March. I think it's just that driving, and I saw it performed live by John Williams at Celebration. Very emotive to see John up on stage. Something I never thought I'd ever get the chance to do. But I've also been to a few John Williams tribute concerts in recent times, and it's been the one thing that seems to be sort of staple whenever they talk about John Williams. They play all the big theme tunes. So they'll play the theme from E.T., the theme from Superman, and things like that, the theme from Star Wars. But they always play the Imperial March. And it's just got that pomp and ceremony about it, and it just drives. And I think that for me is just it's something. If you're a little bit down in yourself, it can just like perk you up a bit. And for me, that's just inspirational.
Yeah, it certainly is. Even when you go to these events like Star Wars Celebration and there's Star Wars tracks playing in the hallways, and as you exit auditoriums and the auditoriums, I think when that one's on, certainly there's more of a bouncy vibe in the place, and everyone's up for it. I'm glad you brought up Shadows of the Empire because I actually seen that album this week in HMV when I was having a little much about actually on CD. And I had a question actually. So was that the soundtrack? I mean, it wouldn't have been because I don't think games would have had soundtracks that were that done that well quality. So was it just a soundtrack developed to go with the story, or what?
It was actually used in the game.
It was using the game, okay.
Yeah, it was used in the game. So if you're lucky enough to have an N64, if not, tap up Mark Alders, also known as Spooked Hippie, who works with us at Jedi News on the literature side. I know he's got a copy of, and has bought an N64 since we last spoke about and our deep dive into Shadows of the Empire. He went out and actually rekindled his N64, bought himself one and went for it. Yeah, but the music was in there, and the music in the asteroid scene, which I think is also a bit of a rehash of some of the music from Empire, and it just plays so well. But yeah, with it being a non-official Star Wars soundtrack as such, it's official, but if you know what I mean, it's just so powerful and what have you. And you've got being done by somebody else like Joel McNeely, who is an absolutely legendary person in his own right for music. For him to actually take those the Williams influences, and you can hear them and you can see accents from all those different Williams soundtracks that had gone before. Because obviously, remember, this is at a stage before we got into the prequels or the sequels. So we'd only got the 3 movies at the time, and it was before the special editions as well. So we'd actually got him he got only 3 movie scores to actually look at and to actually transfer music from and to pick things up from Williams' way of working. And he does it, and he produces what could have been an absolutely credible and perfect soundtrack for a Star Wars movie.
Great to know. Great. I might pick that up next time then. But yeah,
well worth investing in.
My next question for you is: do you have a favorite Star Wars viewing experience?
2. I have 2. One that I can't remember too well because it was early 1978, and I went to the cinema with my mum and dad. And I went to see this little known film called Star Wars, that was known as Star Wars then, No A New Hope and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I remember going and seeing that, and it changed my perception of cinema. It was I was 5, but I'd always been to see things like all the Disney things like Jungle Book, Peter Pan, one of my dinosaurs is missing, all those sort of things, and all of a sudden I was thrown into this galaxy with all these aliens and starfighters and explosions and wizards with swords and all that sort of thing, and it was just blew me away. So that's my first memory of Star Wars, and my love started on that day. But as an adult, a very emotional night was the premiere of The Rise of Skywalker. To actually go in on the blue carpet, as it was, not red carpet, alongside Anthony Daniels, Eunice Suetamo, Daisy Ridley, they were all there. And to walk down that blue carpet with those guys coming into the cinema at the same time as you, and to then sit there and watch the movie with friends, because I was with my cousin Jason, who you know very well, and with Kat from Jedi News as well. Because obviously Jason does a bit of podcasting with yourself, and having James there and stuff like that from Jedi News. That was something I will treasure forever. I never ever thought as a 5-year-old boy I would be able to go and do something like that. And I was very, very, very lucky to have been asked to go to something like that by Lucasfilm. It was an absolute privilege and an honour, and I will remember that forever.
That's wonderful. You know how you can sort of tie it back to that first memory of being 5 years old, and then obviously this sort of adult memory where, you know, it's sort of a dream come true almost. Who were you sitting closest to then, out celebrity wise? Who could you see?
Unfortunately, we weren't that close. I was right next. I had probably the worst seat of the viewing. I had the very front row, seat number 1. So if you imagine that if you're in the biggest probably cinema that you ever sat in, and you have got the row that is basically on the floor, and you are in the very bottom right-hand corner of the screen, that was the seat I had. But so my viewing was really poor, although I could see what was going on. But I was right by the door where all of the stars came in to be presented to us. So Kathleen Kennedy walks past me, J.J. Abrams walks past me, and I'm all about literally within 2 feet of me. Then the whole cast came out, literally walked past my seat. So I got to see everybody up close and personal. And when the cast took their seats, Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams were actually going to exit through that same door before we started watching the film. And me being me, I did not give up the opportunity to step forward and say thank you, hello, and shake hands with both of them. So that for me made the experience even more, because I'd actually met Kath Kennedy and I'd also met J.J. Abrams. So I know what people say about the sequel trilogy. Not everybody likes it, but for me, the emotions of, as I say, from that 5-year-old boy, 42 years later, doing that and having that experience. And then the following day, Jedi News hosted a special event at Disney. What's it called? The Disney place on Oxford Street.
I just call it the Disney Store.
The big Disney store. It's got a special name, hasn't it? James will shoot me for forgetting this.
The upstairs bit has a full name, yeah.
That's it, yeah. And we were hosting a special event for 50 winners to actually meet Eunice Suetamo and Anthony Daniels. And it was a fantastic event. I was actually hosting it with them, and it was brilliant. I loved every second of it. But I actually got a chance to have a chat with Anthony later. And I was telling him about the experience, how emotional it had made me. And he turned around and says, but I understand, he says, because it was emotional. He said he was telling me about his emotional side from it as well, because it was 42 years of his life. And I explained about being the 5-year-old boy and then 42 years later going to see it all again and seeing that through the pomp and ceremony. And we had a real intimate conversation about that. And it really, that enhanced the experience again, if you see what I mean. So that close conversation about that 42-year experience of being a Star Wars fan to the final line in the sand. And then I got the conversation with Anthony. That really made it special even more.
No, that's pretty awesome. I think pretty unique viewing experiences as well, which is awesome.
Yeah.
What's your next one for me, Steve?
Okay then. So you're given the opportunity to meet with a certain guy called George Lucas. You can discuss anything about Star Wars. Nothing's off the table. So once the formalities are over and you've probably composed yourself and scraped yourself off the floor and not washed for a week after you shook the guy's hand, what would be your first question?
That's a hard one.
Have you been asked that before?
I haven't. No. I don't know if I want to talk about Star Wars. To be honest, I think I don't know. I wouldn't mind asking him about like what he's watched lately and sort of what he enjoys watching or reading. I think would be my first questions to him. Like I would just want to know about that. I think we've seen a lot of there's a lot of documentaries and a lot of interviews with George throughout the years, and I think I would be really interested to see like what he's watching and what he's enjoying now, media wise and story wise. But I think my first thing, I suppose, if I was going to ask him a Star Wars related question, I think would be, what Star Wars movie or episode would he come back to direct himself if he was coming back to do a one-off, and what ideas does he have for that? I think would be pretty awesome, because I don't see any reason why he couldn't come back and just do one episode of a TV show, or just come back and do a one-off movie maybe.
That would be nice, wouldn't it, to see him turn his name turn up on the credits for something like the new Mandalorian series for one, or something to do with Ahsoka or something like that. That would be awesome, wouldn't it?
It would be absolutely awesome. I think the main thing is, I think the big thing with George for me, I think, is, and I've never met him, but as much as people think, like, he really doesn't have an ego. Like he's quite he has a dry sense of humor. He's quite a funny guy, although it's very dry. I know it gets misconstrued sometimes, but I think he doesn't have an ego, and I think he doesn't need it, so he's not going to. And I think for him, I mean, I would love it if he did come back and direct something, but I think he's very much like happy. He doesn't even think about that because he's happy with other people having their turn directing the thing he created. But yeah, I think it would be fantastic to speak about what ideas he has to do, if just one episode or something, or just a one-off movie about something related in the Star Wars galaxy would be awesome. But yeah, I think if I've got the chance to speak to him, I think I'll be more intrigued with what he's enjoying these days, like which movies is he loving, which TV shows is he enjoying, what artists is he enjoying in his life.
Mm. This is one of the hardest questions I could probably ever answer as well, to be fair. I came up with it the other night thinking, what can I ask Pete? What can I ask Pete? And I thought, I don't think he's been asked that before. But to be fair, I haven't really sat and thought about what I'd say for this one. But after reading this Star Wars, which is the J.W. Rinsler, who sadly is no longer with us, his version of the original the Star Wars script from its original draft from about 1973 or 1974. I would like to ask you, what would he have kept in hindsight from that plot? Because it's very similar, but it's very different in so many ways. Obviously, the Macquarie concept art is all used through the artwork of the book, and it's just so beautifully drawn. The dialogue's completely different. The characters are different because, Luke Skywalker is more of the Obi-Wan character in it and things like that. But for me, that would be an absolutely what would he have kept from that could have continued throughout the Star Wars main trilogy, the original trilogy.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see what he would say as well, because I think being quite a complex guy, I think the answer you'll get today might be different from maybe 10 years ago as well, as he's aged and as his perspective changes, as all our perspective changes. So that would be really cool. Really cool.
Yeah, for me, the Star Wars really does hold up massively, and I think it's one of these things that I know we get wonderful Star Wars comics week in, week out, and we get a lot of Star Wars literature. But for me, I know it's classed as a legend now. It's never been true verbatim Star Wars anyway, but it just gives you an absolutely different turn. I think it was 8 issues. It was released by Dark Horse, but he's now still available through Marvel. And I do think that it is well worth any Star Wars fan just having a deep dive into it and having a look and just see what Star Wars could have been. And see where it went to from where it was actually perceived to be starting.
Yeah, I didn't pick that up. Actually, I need to try and find a copy of that. I remember seeing it.
You won't be disappointed. You won't be disappointed again.
I'll have to have a look. My next question for you is: which up and coming Star Wars project are you looking forward to the most, and why? It can include like a future season of a TV series that's already aired, so it could be Mandalorian season 3, for example, or it could be Andor season 2. But essentially, a project or a season that's coming up that we haven't seen yet. Which are you most looking forward to, and why?
The one that you haven't mentioned, Ahsoka. For the reason being, Grand Admiral Thrawn. He, since the original Timothy Zahn novels back in '91, Heir to the Empire, that was the thing that rekindled my love of Star Wars. I fell out with Star Wars when I sold my Star Wars figures when I was mid-teens. And the random purchase of that book in a W.H. Smith's in Telford while I was at lunch one day at work, that's what relit the fire of my Star Wars passion. And to see Thrawn in Rebels, I just absolutely adored. But then when he got name dropped in season 2 of The Mandalorian, I was nerdgasm time. It was like they've just mentioned Thrawn. And then obviously, so we sort of like pretty certain that we're going to have every chance of seeing him in the Ahsoka series. So for me, the excitement is around seeing Hera, Jason, or Jason, depending on which way they pronounced it, and obviously Rosario Dawson was reprising the role as Ahsoka. I think that, for me, has got the most excitement around it. Although I'm looking forward to all of it because Andor has been amazing. So season 2, I think, will only live up to and be better than what we've already seen. And Mandalorian's been stunning for two seasons, and we're getting a third. So yeah, I'm excited for all of it, but Ahsoka's the standout for me.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm excited for all of it. You know, Andor season 2 is going to be awesome. Mandal season 3 is coming. We're in the middle of Bad Batch, which I'm enjoying. But I think for me, the one I'm really looking forward to the most, excuse me, is Yakalite. I think I cannot wait for some dark side Sith lore, seeing some dark side Sith artifacts. I think the little bit of sort of information we've had from books like Shadows of the Sith, you know, and from, you know, Star Wars Rebels, when we've been to Malachor and seen the Sith Temple and stuff like that. I'm excited to see, you know, some of that Sith lore and dark side lore and artifacts come together in a series. And who knows what it's even going to be about. It's so new that, you know, there's no way of guessing what we're going to get. You know, even in the Vader comics, you know, we've seen how Vader built his castle and the Sith masks and how the Sith spirits sort of tie themselves to objects. And we've seen in Clone Wars, you know, that Darth Bane tied himself to sort of his tomb. You know, and I'm excited to sort of see how all that comes together in this series. So the Acolyte is the one I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah, so I didn't even give the Acolyte a thought in what I was saying then. Yeah, so you forget that there are quite a few. There's things that will never air. There are things that are being talked about films prospectively. We'll never see the light of day. But obviously, the Acolyte we know he's filming currently. We've all seen the spoiler film. There's the spoiler pictures around and things like that. So yeah, as I say, all Star Wars series up and coming are, you know, all wanted and loving every minute of it. But hey, Ahsoka is the standout for me personally. So I think it's the next question from me, isn't it now?
It sure is.
So I think this is another one. This is a bit of another hypothetical one as well. So bear with me. So you're invited to the Lucasfilm archive. Okay, you're given the chance to open any crate within the archive, but on top of that, you can take that one prop or model home with you. So it's from any TV series or movie. Which item would you take and why?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I think the crate I want to open the most would be like the crate from Jabba's palace, and all seeing all the wonderful and weird and dirty things from there, from the aliens and the puppets to the actual like ornaments that Jabba has and things like that. I think that the design is very, very unique and very, you know, as soon as you see it, you know, it's Jabba's palace type of thing. I think for the item I want to take away, I don't know if this would count as one item, but I would just love sort of Luke Skywalker's entire wardrobe from Jabba's palace. Is that allowed?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, so yeah, we'll allow that one. Yeah, so a costume. Yeah, I should have said costume as well, shouldn't I? Really, but yeah, I do count that as one item. So I can agree. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from with the Jabba's palace. Yeah, because obviously it's just the denizens of iniquity just in there. I think it is a bit of a special eclectic mix. I think if I was going to go for something like that, to open a crate just to be a little bit of a Pandora's box, it'd probably be the Creature Cantina. So obviously Wurher's Cantina on Tatooine for the same reason. But if I was to open a crate and take only one item, I don't think I'd have room for it. But I think it'd be one of the large-scale Millennium Falcon models.
Yeah, definitely.
Just like made from all the Greeblies and all the painting done by that unbelievable model making gang. Who obviously we saw in the documentaries on Disney Plus not so long back, and just absolute geniuses at Lucasfilm and ILM. And yeah, I think it'd be one of the larger scale Falcons. Well, it's probably about the size of a king size bed. I think I'd take that one. I get my money's worth.
Indeed, hey, why not?
So yeah, bit of an obscure one, but I thought it was worth asking that one.
No, definitely good. Like I said, I think I would choose Jabba's palace again because you get a wide range of creatures, plus ornaments, plus, you know, character stuff. You know, you get the Rancor in with that. You get the Rancor Keeper's costume. You know, Uda's costume.
Yeah.
Salacious Crumb, like Jabba himself. you know, you get probably the models of actual Jabba's palace, you know, from the
Mm-hmm.
when they shot it from outside. Then obviously, you know, you've got the characters like Luke Han, Leia, you know, Leia's Bush, and they were all there. So Lando was there in disguise, Chewie in chains. Even just the droids that I can't remember his name now, but the evil droid who works at Jabba. Who,
88. Oh, it's
yeah, like
EVD9, isn't it?
so you've got him there. You know,
EVD9 is the one who stamps the feet, isn't it?
yeah. Could even see like R2 with the drinks rack on him. You know, there's a lot of cool stuff there. My next one for you is: do you have a favorite convention or Star Wars celebration moment? And what are you most looking forward to about the upcoming Star Wars celebration this Easter?
Phew. Star Wars moment at Celebration Anaheim last year. The first celebration was very emotive for me last year. It was my first trip to the States. So that was a big thing for me. I'd done Galaxy's Edge the 2 days before, so I ticked some really big bucket list things off on during that period. But I think for me, the first panel was the Lucasfilm panel, and sort of like a few minutes into it, Kathleen Kennedy wheels out, what's his name, Ewan McGregor, just that bit part actor who might have been there, and then we obviously were being invited back to the premiere of Obi-Wan Kenobi that night and seen it 24 hours before the rest of the world. So that was a bit special. But then when they wheeled out John Williams to play the Obi-Wan Kenobi theme, that was stuff of legends. I got to admit, I had not got a dry eye for nearly an hour at that point. It was just so emotional, and it was just such an experience. I could not have wished for anything more for the first hour of my celebration in America. So yeah, it was pretty damn spectacular. I've got to be honest. And for this year, it's just meeting everybody and being back in that environment again, and sort of meeting you face to face. So I know you're going to be stopping with us and that sort of thing. So it's going to be connecting with people, and that's part of celebration. When I was over in Anaheim this year, I was lucky enough to meet all the High Republic authors and had a real good conversation with them, and we put that out on Jedi News. But then, so you'd bump into Cavan Scott or Mike Siglane while they were walking down the corridor, and you say hi, how you doing? And meeting guys like Ethan Sachs, who I've got to know over the last couple of years since interviewing him. We've become a sort of like distant friends sort of thing, and we're in contact not on a regular basis, but it was actually nice to actually physically meet him and actually say, hi, Ethan, how you doing? And hang out for a little while together. And it's those types of things when you get a chance to do that at Celebration. It's not just about the panels. It's about meeting those people who you've got those online relationships with, or you might have interviewed, or like people like yourself who are part of fandom and part of the community. And we can all get together and share a drink or share our stories over a bite to eat or something like that. So for me, that's the powerful part of celebration, is all those people coming together and actually celebrating, and exactly what it says, celebration of everything Star Wars and the people who love Star Wars so much.
Yeah, definitely. I think some of mine are, I think, my first celebration, which was 2016 in London. So that's where I met sort of Savannah Kiefer, obviously from the Doggy Diva show. I met her in the queue to get in on the first day. She been quite a few celebrations, so we struck up conversation. She's absolutely wonderful person. And she sort of gives a lot of tips of sort of what to do, where to go, what it would be like. We went to a couple of panels together, and obviously kept in touch from then. And probably wouldn't be podcasting had I not sort of listened to her podcast and listened to some other podcasts because of the conversation I had. Obviously stayed in touch with her. Through her, met the likes of Brian Balance, who co-hosts that podcast with her. The likes of Daniel Berry, who does the Force Cast. I met through Savannah as well. People who I met in Celebration Orlando, the sort of the year later. Which was pretty pretty awesome. And then, Celebration Chicago I went to as well. Very lucky to go to that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, make even more memories with these people, and met some other people, Charlotte and Caitlin from Sky Talkers. Are two people I respect an awful lot, and to get them to meet them was really cool and hang out. So that's sort of the non-celebrity side of it, and I think on the other side of it, you've got all that awesome celebration moments where, I remember at the Star Wars Rebels panel at Celebration London, I was there with my cousin Alan, who actually got me into Star Wars. He's older than me. Watched it in his house on VHS, was how I got into it as a 4-year-old. And obviously he's quite similar to yourself, Steve, where he those Timothy Zahn books, really kept Star Wars alive for him. And then when Thrawn was announced, and then Timothy Zahn come on the screen to talk about it, I was quite pumped, but seeing how excited he was about that again was like quite a magical moment. And then, that was in Celebration London, and then in Celebration Orlando, which I went to on my own, I actually bumped into Timothy Zahn at the Hasbro booth. I think that celebration was announced the Thrawn 6-inch Hasbro Black Series figure in the Celebration exclusive version that came with the cool accessories. And the day before, the box had been like blank with like a question mark in it. And then I was walking past the next day, and the Thrawn figure was in, so I noticed it, and I was sort of walking past, looking at the figure, not watching where I was going, and I nearly knocked the gentleman over. And when I turned around, it was actually Timothy Zahn. Obviously, I apologised, and he was fine. And I was like, "Oh, sorry, just like that wasn't there yesterday," and it's pretty awesome. So I was looking at that, and then I was like, "Oh, but it's like your figure, isn't it?" So you're probably thinking that's awesome as well. And he was like, "Yeah." So that was really cool. And then obviously, connective tissue from sort of me and Alan being at Celebration London, and the announcement of Thrawn coming into canon, and Timothy Zahn doing a video, to then me bumping into Timothy Zahn and being like, "Oh, I wish Alan was here to experience that." Obviously comes to Celebration of Chicago, and obviously at the time I've got a relationship with some of the people on the Forcecast on their booth, and we happened to be there chatting to some of the Forcecast team as sort of Timothy Zahn was just wrapping up an interview there, and Alan was able to get a picture with Tim Zahn, which was I felt pretty really happy for him and felt really cool being able to sort of not necessarily orchestrate that for him, but to be a little part of it and to get that sorted for him, I think, and to see his face, it was really cool.
Jealous from this end. I've got to admit, I've been lucky enough. I have actually interviewed Timothy. It was so obscure. I was actually doing the day job, and it was at the release of the, I don't know, it was the first or second Thrawn trilogy, the latest trilogy. I think it was the second. Yeah, it was for the second book, and Del Rey got in contact with me through their UK representative and said, "Would you be happy to be nominated to Lucasfilm to interview Timothy Zahn for Jedi News?" And I'm like, "You just absolutely pinch me, please. You just really do pinch me, because I can't believe I'm reading this email."
Yeah.
And I was dancing around the office at work, and people were going, "What the hell's up with you?" And I just said, "You'll never understand. You will never absolutely understand." So I had to come home and write a so many word pitch of why I wanted to interview him. And there was only us. I think it was Entertainment Earth and two of the other big US sort of like book sites that he actually did interviews in, plus StarWars.com. And there was little old me and James. we got an exclusive interview with him, and we were given 45 minutes with him. And what a genuinely generous gentleman he is. He was so generous with his time, so honest with his answers and everything. And it was an absolute dream come true for me to actually just interview him. I've not had the pleasure of actually meeting him face to face, and I was desperately disappointed that he wasn't at Anaheim last year. But it's just one of those things. Hopefully, we might see him in London in April. But yeah, so I know where Alan's coming from. Tim Zahn is legendary.
He certainly is. He's a wonderful guy as well. So I know I knocked him over, but he was very, very kind. I managed to get a picture of him afterwards as well. I think he was excited for my excitement for the figure that was on display. I think it was quite surreal moment for both of us.
An absolutely genuine person. Absolutely genuine person he is.
Do you have a last question for me?
Yeah. Well, we've sort of like covered it. So one of the backup questions I've got, because you'd asked me to write 5, so I'd actually wrote 7. But we've touched on it a bit. So if you had to sell all of your collection for some unbeknown reason, but you're allowed to keep only one item forever. You're never allowed to collect Star Wars ever again, but you can keep one item. What would that item be?
Ooh, very, very tough one. Very tough one.
We've sort of gone there with the Grail item sort of thing, but this is what you currently own and what you would not want to give up.
Yeah, it'd be toss up between. I've got like the before they became the Hasbro Black Series lightsabers. I've got like the Hasbro. I've forgotten what they were called.
Legacy, was it?
Like I think that's what they called the Disney Store now. But yeah, like what they were called like 10 years ago. The same style saber. So I've got like.
Is it the Master Replicas ones?
I'm not quite sure.
I'm showing my age there because my lightsabers are Master Replicas.
Yeah, I think it's that type of range. So I've got like the New Hope saber of that. So that's like pretty cool, and that might be one thing I want to keep. But again, go back to me that X-wing. I think it could fit on any shelf anywhere and look cool. So, and I play with it a lot as a kid. So, I think one of those. If you ask us a different day, I'd pick the other one. I'm going to go with the lightsaber today. But
yeah, it is one of those emotive questions, isn't it? It does change. I picked up a few years back. For me, it would still be, although it's only a recent acquirement, a recent item I've acquired. I picked up a vintage original figure of Obi-Wan Kenobi with fully intact lightsaber and cape. And I got it from a person who I don't believe knew what they got in their possession. A collector's store in my hometown, Wolverhampton, or home city. And I picked it up for something like £12. I actually bartered him down from the 15 he got it on on the window for. And I've got to admit, that's, for me, I think would be the piece that I would keep. Very small, but still means a lot to me because obviously being my favourite character. And just being the figure that I had as a 5-year-old boy.
That's pretty awesome. Pretty cool. Pretty cool story, and pretty glad you got a good price on that as well. It's weird how one person's junk's another person's treasure, isn't it? I think
that's it. I've actually used that phrase near enough tonight in a WhatsApp conversation with Jedi News literature colleagues about books. Star Wars literature it can be either people can love it or not like it or hate it in some way, but then you might read those two books and see it the opposite way to me. And that's the beauty of Star Wars, and that's why it sells, and that's why we keep talking about it.
It certainly is. I get jealous sometimes because I know, like, we had Silver on the show a couple of months ago now. She's her Twitter handle's Star Wars thrifting. She does a lot of Star Wars she lives in California, does a lot of Star Wars thrifting, and she gets like, a lot of awesome stuff at like really cheap prices because there's loads in that area. And like some of the stories, one was the Star Wars Racer Revenge, not Racer Revenge, the Star Wars Episode 1 Racer arcade game was available, and it was like must be picked up today, and it was like $200 or something like that. And she was able to source a van and go and pick it up, and that works, and that's when we actually sit in the pod, and the controls are in the pod.
I've played it many times.
So she owns that, and she got it, for $200 is pretty good deal. Because I had to go that day, and I see some of the things that I keep my eye on her Twitter because she's sort of out hunting for Star Wars merch every week and hits the thrift stores and the marketplaces, and she finds all sorts, and from figures to VHSs to a lot of crew hats and crew jumpers and crew jackets, and all really, really good prices. So I get a bit jealous. I wish I lived there where I could maybe get my hands on more merch for a lot cheaper prices.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things. I think people in this country see, especially in the UK, they see Star Wars on it and they automatically think it's worth a fortune. Some of the markups I've seen on some items recently have been absolutely laughable. So I know my going prices, and then you see something like a really bad beta of a modern Star Wars figure that's probably only been out a couple of years, the 5 point of articulation, sort of like the Force Awakens figure, and that something wants like £15 to £20 for it, and they're available in the Entertainer at the moment over here for like £2.50, brand new in a box.
Yeah,
But the charity shop or whatever wants £15 for them. So what's that? Sort of what, $17, $18. It's just like, really, and I can buy it for $3. I don't think so. So yeah, Star Wars sells, but sometimes it can be overpriced as well.
I've got one last question for you, Steve. I'm going to sneak it in.
Go on then.
If you could live on any Star Wars planet or city, which would it be and why?
That is a good one, I've got to admit, and I'd probably have probably a couple of answers for that one. Naboo is a planet of beauty.
That's mine.
And I think
that
would be, peaceful, tranquility, and all that sort of thing until Sith Lords turn up. That does go a bit of a melee then, and trade federations, but we'll say no more about that. But I think the other one would be Coruscant. And the reason I say that is because it's just so diverse. It's like the world we live in today is completely diverse. But obviously you've got the 1313 floor, the underground as was going to be. And obviously what Ahsoka went through at the end of the Clone Wars Season 7, where the parts which she went through. But then you've got the pomp and ceremony of the Jedi Temple, the Senate buildings, and all those sort of things. And if you've ever played the Star Wars interactive game from Disney, for the Infinity system, if you actually get a chance to do that and have a wander around the upper levels of Coruscant, it's just absolutely amazing what they did with that. And that obviously extends to the Star Wars Lego games of recent times, obviously the Skywalker saga. So when you actually get into Coruscant there's so much to explore. And I think that would be just somewhere that you could see so much. You could go from the darkest depths and the seedy underworld that we see in Attack of the Clones, when Anakin and Obi-Wan go after Zam Wesell. But then you'd have the beauty and the pomp and ceremony of the Jedi Temple. And I think you've got the two completely polar aspects, I think, which will be a wonderful thing for that. So you're saying Naboo then?
I think, I want to have a peaceful life where, I live on Naboo. I'm not saying I live by the lake, but I can have day trips by the lake maybe. Nice peaceful life, tasty food, especially them pears. Nice time in the fields and by the lake. And I think, if I've got to leave the world to go to work, then, so be it. But that's where I want to come back to and enjoy a peaceful life. But I think there's some other awesome places. I think Ring of Catherine, I can't even pronounce it, from Rogue One. That gave me like Indiana Jones type vibes of space and all the different cultures that were in there, and them cooking the street food and the shadiness of it. That's probably where I'd like to visit for like a European city break, should we say, would be the Ring of Catherine, I think.
Yeah, I think the place to visit for me would be Jeddah. That's got that type of vibe. I think that's got very much that type of vibe, that eclectic marketplace, which again is a bit Indiana Jones because you've got all the market stalls and everything. But yeah, that'd be interesting because obviously the Jedi history there as well. Obviously, which is being unveiled more and more through the new High Republic phase 2. So obviously, that'd be another one for me to be my place to visit, if you know what I mean.
Indeed, spot on. I think that's the end of my Star Wars questions. Have you got any more left, or are we wrapped?
No, I'm absolutely at my limits now, mate. So I've run out of things that I've prepared.
I've got one last one for you, sort of half joking, half
not.
not.
Oh bloody hell! Where are you getting these from?
Obviously, no, it's not Star Wars related. I know. Obviously, you're a Wolves fan. Obviously,
yes.
English team. It's not about Wolves though. But do you think Newcastle will win the League Cup?
No, because we're going to win it now. I'm sorry, we got knocked out, didn't we? trying to just go past that one, the penalty that wasn't, and all that sort of stuff. Not talking about refereeing decisions. They've got every chance, mate. They've got a very good chance. I think the most improved team. I think we've had to use you as a bit of a catalyst for last season because we were on the same amount of points as you were after the same amount of games this season as you were last. So we're now trying to emulate yourselves and try and get back to where we were a couple of seasons back, up in that European spots. So it would be nice to see a different team's name on that trophy. I do say it a lot, especially with the cups. We were very close a few years ago in the semi-final of the FA Cup, which is sort of the second FA Cup semi-final I've seen in my time. So I've been quite lucky. But over the years, it would be nice to see Newcastle get something, to be fair. It's a shame it's not the FA Cup, because you could actually take that to Alan Shearer and say, at least we've won it, and he still hasn't got a medal.
Yeah.
And I mean that in the nicest sense to Alan Shearer, because he's very complimentary about my team, Wolves. So I do mean that in the nicest of senses to him.
No, we'll take that. So no, obviously, Steve, it's been a pleasure having you on. Obviously, you are the literature editor of Jedi News. You can follow Jedi News on Twitter at Jedi News Network. Is there anything cool happening on the site that you want to let the listeners know about?
There's going to be the Mandalorian trailer early hours of this morning, but that will have gone past by now. By the time this is probably aired. So yeah, there's stuff going up on the site every day. Obviously, we try and keep abreast of what's going on. We pull together what's going on with other sites. We work closely with other people. So we do a lot with Comics with Kenobi, and obviously Dan's there because Dan's a real good, close, personal friend of James's. Hi Dan, because if you're listening, hopefully we'll see you at Celebration in April. It's nice to actually another person who I've actually got a chance to meet over in Anaheim. But yeah, it's just every day we put up as much as we can up there. Obviously the UK Garrison Bash alongside with Jedi News has gone live tonight as we speak. So the tickets are up for sale for that. So for whoever's out there and qualifies as a member of one of the groups, it'd be great to see you all. Can't wait for that. So yeah, just tune in every day for different news and reviews, and we just keep doing and posting what we can. And the guys out there like yourselves do sterling work every day, logging in and checking what we put out.
We do indeed. Like I said, it's one of the best places to go for Star Wars news and information. Where can people find you on social media, Steve?
So on social media, as you can probably tell from my Obi-Wan fascination, I am Jedi Master Obi-Wan on all platforms. That's Jedi Master, then OB, and then the numerical value 1. So letters OB and then 1. That comes from the old myth that Obi-Wan was actually a clone from many years ago. That was something that was talked about. And also, if you want to email me, you can get me at steve@jedinews.com.
Well, thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for inviting me.
Anytime. I'd love to have you back on to maybe deep dive Obi-Wan Kenobi. Definitely sounds like a good idea.
Look forward to that. Yeah, I would love to do that with you, mate.
So we'll have to get that booked in, maybe before Celebration if we can. I know we're both very busy.
Yeah, we'll sort something.
We can try and make it work. But no, thank you very much for coming on. Listeners, thank you very much for listening. Again, as always, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, there's options on there to leave a review. So please leave a top review. Nice little sentence as well, telling us what you enjoy about the show. Again, it just helps other people find the podcast, and it also helps us book guests for the podcast as well. If you're listening on a different type of podcast platform, and again it has a rating system, it allows you to leave a comment. Again, just think about leaving a little comment, leaving a top review. Only takes you a couple of minutes, but it makes us smile for hours. Thank you very much for listening, and remember, always tell that to Kanja Club.
Hello, Star Wars listeners. This is Savannah Odit. You might know me as host of The Dorky Diva Show with my co-host Brian Balance. I am also producer of The Adventures of the Zolan Dart, which is a Star Wars-inspired audio drama that we produced over the last year. If you love stories about smugglers, courage, heroic characters, and maybe a few foes along the way, you should go to thedorkydivashow.com and listen to The Adventures of the Zolan Dart today.
Shout! We've got your pigs.
Were any of the critters harmed?
What did you do now?
I didn't do anything. I just freaked out for no reason.
It was nice doing business with you again. Maybe next time we could deliver something less temperamental.
Now, what you call temperamental, I call fun.
Hey, is there a place nearby where I can make some repairs?
3 clicks south of here, you'll find a small spaceport. They should have what you need, as long as it's nothing too big.
Dynamic class? My stars, you don't hear about many of those still being space-worthy.
It's been in my family for a while.
She's pretty great. Any chance you have a hover cart we can use to load up?
I'll check out the HoloNet to see if anything new has come up in the sector.
My name is Sereth Khan. I am the chief here on Kamai. My people and I have been experiencing food shortages as of late due to unforeseen natural occurrences. We are looking to hire someone.
I say we take this one. The pay is great, and it's the type of job we're familiar with.
Welcome. You must be Captain Otoa. I've already sent word to Pack 2 to expect you in the next cycle or so.
You told him we were coming before we even accepted the job. That's rather presumptuous, isn't it?
Perhaps, though once I received confirmation that you were interested and on your way here, I couldn't help but hope.
Fair enough. Well, we'll be back as soon as we can.
Well, that's not good.
Is that blaster fire I hear?
So you're the one.
Captain, it sounds like they want to do this the hard way.
I love when they got some fight in them.
This is bad. This is bad. We're about to have a lot of company.
I'll see you soon.